Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kylie Mergen here for the Native American Housing Initiatives Grants Program webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. A little bit about me before we get started. I started my career at a local financial institution during college, and I fell in love with housing. I joined the Federal Home Loan Bank in 2007 as a collateral review officer, where I spent the first 15 years of my career here at FHLBank, supporting our members through credit and collateral initiatives. And then in 2022, I had an opportunity to lead the Housing and Community Investment Community Development Team, HCD. And I'm so glad that I made that transition to support the efforts that we make to further housing and our mission. So a couple of housekeeping items. You are all on mute, so sorry about that, but we find it's easier to keep everyone muted for the enjoyment of others. If you have questions, we'd love to hear them. Please use the chat and Q&A options at the top of your screen to submit questions. Rachel, who's here in the room with me, is going to be monitoring those questions throughout this session. We're also going to have a lot of time at the end for Q&A. So if you have a question, please ask. We want you to get the most out of this that you can. And if you have a question, I possibly wasn't clear enough, and it's possible that somebody else has the exact same question. So don't be afraid to speak up. We want to get you the full benefit of the information. And if something doesn't make sense, let's chat about it. So with that, we're going to get started. Today, we're going to walk through who we are and what we do as a bank and as a department, right? What does HCD do and why are we here? We'll talk about the NAHI grants program, also how to make application and how the awards are processed. We're going to walk through the timeline for the applications for 2024. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll understand a little bit more about NAHI and why the program is offered. We're going to answer how to apply for the program this year, including how much funding is available. And then I'd like for you to take away how the program was utilized in 2023. I'm going to give you a lot of information today, like a lot. It's going to be overwhelming. It's okay. It's overwhelming for me sometimes too. The very best part, you don't have to memorize it. We're here to help. So you can call me, you can call our team. We're going to publish this so you'll have it so you can go back and listen. We are here to help you through this process. Okay, so first up, I know we have folks on from the member side and also some people representing Native communities in our district. So I just want to provide a very high level of who we are and what we are designed to do as Federal Home Loan Bank. We provide needed liquidity and funding to our members throughout our district of Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. We are member owned and are able to provide a competitive advantage to our members through our products and services. We are considered a GSE or government sponsored enterprise. We were created by Congress in 1932 to help with housing and community development. There are 11 different Federal Home Loan Banks throughout the United States. We all have different regions or districts, and that is to bring focus on the needs of individual communities. We're privately owned and federally chartered, and we promote housing and homeownership through our programs. We serve over 670 members across our 4-state district, and our programs are only accessible through those members. So in housing and community development, or HCD, that's the department that I'm lucky enough to lead. We get to provide funding to support our district. I've been calling us the reward or the heart part of the bank. For all of the hard work and effort throughout the rest of the bank, we then have the opportunity to build communities and change lives. By regulation, we take 10% of our income and we funnel that back into our district through affordable housing initiatives. And we're able to do that through a few programs that we administer. We currently administer 4 programs in HCD. At a high level, our Affordable Housing Program, or AHP, is our competitive grant program. When you combine the Federal Home Loan Bank system as a whole, it is the largest privately funded housing grant program in the nation. Turnkey. Turnkey provides down payment assistance to homebuyers in our district. And the community housing program and community development program, those are our discounted advance programs that promote and encourage community lending through our members. And then voluntary programs are funding beyond the regulatory requirement. Remember, I talked about that 10% regulatory contribution. Voluntary programs, voluntary contributions are funds that we are choosing to provide beyond our regulatory requirement. And we want to provide those to assist with housing needs that are outside or beyond the scope of our regulatory programs. So this year, in 2024, we'll be able to provide over $50 million to our members to support housing in our district. Our required contribution will be split between AHP, remember that competitive grant program that we have, and HSP, which is our regulatory down payment assistance program. And then last year, we announced our growing commitment to voluntary funding, which will increase dramatically over the next couple of years. So last year, in addition to our 10% required contribution, we also committed to providing at least $1 million in funding in 2023. And that turned into $3 million. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And in 2024, an additional 2.5% and up to 5% in 2025 and beyond. Like all of our programs, voluntary grant programs are funded in partnership with our members. So for the 2024 voluntary programs, of that 2.5%, it is allocated in 3 different ways, or split 3 different ways. 40% to our Homeownership Possibilities Expanded program, or HOPE. 35% to the NAHI grants program, which we're talking about today. And then 25% is going to AHP Extra, which is just an additional contribution to our AHP program. Very, very high level of our program and super tiny print. I'm sure you guys can't even read that. This includes all of our programs, all of the amounts, all of the dates. It's sort of a one-stop shop for us, our program matrix. It's a good resource for all of you to see where we're able to help with funding for affordable housing and economic development in your communities. This is available on our website and also available by scanning that QR code. 2 new programs were developed for 2024, the Homeownership Possibilities Expanded program, or HOPE, and also the Homeownership Set Aside Program Plus is an expansion or enhancement of last year's high cost area HSP. So we're very excited about those new programs this year. Back to voluntary programs. Voluntary programs are funding outside of our regulatory contribution, and that does not have to meet the same requirement or the same standards or requirements of our traditional programs. So NAHI was our very first voluntary program and was introduced in 2023. And when I say very first, we had one, but we haven't had one since like 2016. So it's the first one for me. So NAHI this year, the Native American Housing Initiatives Grants Program, or NAHI for short, is a voluntary grant program that provides access to grant funds intended to build communities in support of housing for Native Americans in Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. NAHI supports tribal organizations working at the grassroots level, which are in the very best position to identify tribal needs. Funds are accessed in partnership with FHLBank members and are focused on housing initiatives in our district. Last year was our first year, and with the success of the program, we're so happy to be able to offer this program again. And you can see on the screen, we have $3.6 million that we're able to contribute to that program this year. So probably the 2 questions I've been asked the most frequently over the last year are like, why NAHI? Why did you pick NAHI? How did that come about? And why are you doing this now? And I figured you guys might be wondering too. So I thought I'd share with you. First, why now? Now it's the right time. We hadn't had a voluntary program since 2016 that addressed needs in the district outside of our regulatory programs. We've had record earnings over the last few years, and we have additional funds that we're able to provide to support our district. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this, but there was an initiative over the last couple of years called the FHLBank System at 100 initiative. As I said, we were created in 1932 and we're getting ready to have our 100-year birthday coming up. And so in doing a little self-evaluation coming up on that momentous occasion, we recognized that this was an area that we could improve upon. When we looked at all of our programs overall and what we were able to offer our members, we recognized that voluntary programs is something that we could improve upon. And second, it's the right thing for us to do. It does align with our mission. It provides additional funding to our members to support their community. We're giving you an additional opportunity in a different way to support your community, and it addresses challenges in our regulatory programs and provides opportunities to those projects that may not fit or score high enough for award. And it's also the right time. So why NAHI, right? We said, why now and why NAHI? For NAHI, it's the right time. For over 30 years, Native Americans and Native American projects have not traditionally received funding through our programs. And also the FHLBank System at 100, 2 roundtables were held. The one in our district in Oklahoma City focused on challenges experienced for Native Americans. And it's the right thing. We have the highest percentage of the Native American population, 3% of people in our population in our district are Native American. And that's not to say we have the highest population. That would be Des Moines, who has Alaska and other Native communities. But from a percentage standpoint, we have a lot of Native American communities in our district. We have a significant number of tribes in our district, almost 50, including the largest tribe in the nation, which is the Cherokee tribe. Some FHL banks don't have tribes at all in their district. That's not to say they don't have Native people, but they might not have a tribe at all in their district footprint. And finally, there is a tremendous need in the community in the Native American community for support. So let's get into the needs a bit more. A third of Native households on tribal lands live in poverty compared to 18% nationally. Median household income is 33% less when compared nationally. Tribal governments note significant obstacles in infrastructure and high development costs as a barrier to housing in their communities. And families in tribal lands have a different lived experience when compared nationally. 16% of families live in overcrowded conditions versus 2% nationally. 34% have one or more physical housing issue compared to 7% nationally. Families are 5 times more likely to live in poor housing conditions and 4 times more likely to live in a home without a sink, range, or refrigerator. And the most significant issue noted was heating, with families 1,200 times more likely to live in homes that have a heating issue when compared nationally. And so where did it start? First, we listened. Every quarter, we meet with our Affordable Housing Advisory Council, or AHAC, and our board of directors to discuss housing and economic development needs and challenges faced in our district. Native American communities and the struggles faced continue to be a topic of discussion. We have representation of Native American voices on our AHAC and our board, and we listened. There were also 2 FHLBank System at 100 roundtables that focused on support for Native American communities. So when we listen, here are a few of the things many things that were shared at the roundtables. A few of the themes that we recognized. Regulatory burden negates the benefits of programs, making it hard, making it challenging, specifically with Native American communities that might not have the same capacity as others. Don't make it complex. There are already programs and plans in place that need funding. There's no need to make it hard. Native communities know what the needs are. They need funding without telling them how to use it. Preferably, that funding comes in larger amounts. I know a lot of the programs have much smaller thresholds, $2,000 per household, those types of things. Provide funding to specifically support Native Americans because it's difficult to compete. And that's important. And then finally, listen. This was and is the biggest takeaway that we have, and that is to listen to what's being said and try to respond. And so we responded. We created NAHI for the sole purpose of providing funding to Native Americans in our district, because we know that they are in the best, to provide that funding to Native American tribes and tribally designated housing entities, because we know they're in the best position to address housing challenges faced in their communities. We designed the program with the feedback that we heard. Low barrier. We didn't want to put a lot of restrictions or requirements. We wanted the uses to be flexible, give the recipients the ability to do what they do best. We wanted to be sensitive to the unique needs of the Native American communities and provide funding in larger amounts. We want to remove complexity. We don't need an application with 50 different questions and a scoring rubric. Make it as simple as possible. And finally, we want the program to be a partnership. That includes partnership with us and partnership with our members. The grants are intended to strengthen and support housing for Native Americans in our district. Eligible recipients will partner with members to access the grant funds. Grants will be deployed in larger increments with a minimum of $100,000 and a maximum of $500,000. The size of the grant will depend on the alignment with the purpose of the program, and impact reporting will be requested to determine the outcomes of the funds provided. Eligible recipients are federally recognized tribes or tribally designated housing entities. To be eligible, the tribes or TDHEs must provide housing services to those residing in our district. So what can the funds be used for? This is asked probably every time I speak with someone about this. You can see listed here on the screen, this isn't an exhaustive list, but certainly some ideas of how the funds can be used. The funds should be connected to housing for Native Americans in our district in some way. Beyond traditional uses like down payment assistance, repairs, rental assistance, new construction, those are sort of traditional programs and the way that they're utilized. It can also be used for lending capital, market research, enhancements to current and existing programs. We want to hear what the needs are. We don't want to set a list and tell you what you should use these funds for, because we don't know what that is. What we heard is that there are needs that don't traditionally receive funding, so we're open to supporting those initiatives. And ineligible uses, it's probably easier to list what the funds can't be used for, right? So it has to be any non-housing related expense or program. Litigation, lobbying, those are not eligible uses. If you pull up then, the box on the screen, the grant funds are expected to impact the provision of housing by strengthening the recipient's financial position, operational efficiency, and or human capital. The funds are to further the housing opportunities offered to Native Americans in our district. You can see here on the screen the timeline. So before we get to the application process, let's talk about some important dates for the program. The application period will open on June 3rd. So that's like 2 weeks away, right? Maybe 3. And close July 12th. Member certifications will be submitted following the application. Once the application period closes, we will evaluate all applications with awards notified by October 31st. Funds will be dispersed by the end of the year, and then impact reporting will be then 9 to 12 months out from disbursement. So how do you apply, right? Let's walk through that process. The first half of the process is application submission, member certification, and application evaluation. Application submission, you complete and submit the application in partnership with a member. You must meet the criteria for an eligible recipient, so you must be a federally recognized tribe or tribally designated housing entity to be eligible to use the funds. We expect to see the application, how the funds will further housing solutions. What is the strategy to increase those opportunities to support Native Americans in our geographic footprint, and how will our funds help achieve that strategy? Provide us with specific outcomes you anticipate by using the funds. What are the impacts that you're anticipating if you were to receive an award? The application period opens on June 3rd. with the application available on our website. So as soon as it launches, it will be out on our website. It is mobile friendly, and a paper application can be provided upon request. The deadline for submission is 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 12th. As noted, this is in partnership with our members, and a member certification will be required. Following the application submission, the member will receive an email to certify the application. The person certifying the application for the member must be an authorized user. You must have the authority as an HCD user or an advances user. And so my members on the call will know what that means. And if there's clarification needed for anyone on who that is, please reach out. We'll let you know who the HCD users and advanced users are. In each section of the application, it must be completed. Incomplete applications will not be considered for award. And signatures are required, and they can be electronic. Supporting documentation, new this year, different from last year, you must submit proof of being an eligible recipient. We must document that you are a federally recognized tribe or tribally designated housing entity. And we will list on the application the ways in which you can provide that documentation, what are acceptable forms that will be identified on the application. Also, submit any additional information you'd like considered during the application period. If you have a development and you want to provide us with the plans, if you have a certain budget that you want us to look at, anything that you think is beneficial when we are considering your application, I would encourage you to submit from a documentation standpoint. Okay. Part of the simplicity of the program was to design it in a narrative format. We ask open-ended questions because we want to hear your story and how we can help. I'll walk you through the sections of the application, starting with, of course, basic instructions, right? This is just every other application. This is how you fill out the application. Moving on then, the applicant information, the main point of contact, email, address, all of that can be completed there. You can see the required. It looks like almost everything is required on screen. If you have a website, we'd love to have it. If you want to include your phone number, go ahead, but we at least need your email address, name of organization, and of course, the contact person is who we should contact in the event we have questions or if awarded. Member information. Remember, the contact person should be an authorized user. Otherwise, we just need all of the information on who we should contact or who we should send that certification to for the member. And then the actual amount requested and how the funds will be used. Remember, it's 100,000 up to 500,000, and then you can check all that apply. How do you intend to use these funds if awarded? And now the fun part, the narrative. Again, we want to hear your story. What is your mission, history, current programs, what challenges you have, and when you experience that with other funding, what challenges you have with funding programs in general or with housing initiatives in your area. What is your geographic footprint? Who and where will benefit from the funding? How will you increase or strengthen housing in your community? What's your strategy? How will these funds help or benefit that? How will NAHI funds help you accomplish that strategy? What is the outcome or impact expected? And how are you going to measure success by receiving these funds? What would be the success of that impact? And then, of course, documentation should be sent to our NAHI email inbox. And finally, the certification and signature. You want to provide documentation in one of the forms listed below to ensure confirmation of a federally recognized tribe or a tribally designated housing entity. You want to check the boxes to ensure you meet program requirements. Check them if you do, right? And then sign and date. There's a submit button right below that that I wasn't able to get on the slide. And then once it's submitted, the certification will go to the member. So once the application is fully submitted and completed, then the member contact will receive the certification. The person completing the certification must have authority to make certifications on behalf of the member. So like I said, they should have HCD user, advances user authorizations. The member is certifying that the information is true and correct to the best of your ability, and that the applicant meets the eligibility requirements. The member is also certifying that it will assist the recipient with the disbursement and impact reporting processes if awarded. Again, this is in partnership with the member and with us, and so we want to include the member in those processes. So members will partner with eligible recipients to provide support for the application. You'll complete the member certification and work with the recipient and FHLBank to coordinate disbursement and impact reporting. And the next screen shows us the actual certification. It's pretty simple. Certifying the information is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and that the applicant meets the eligibility requirements. Again, you'll want to make sure that you are authorized if you're certifying the application. And then after the application member certification periods, we're going to evaluate all applications submitted to determine award. Like I said earlier, incomplete applications will not be reviewed, and applications without member certifications will not be reviewed. We may reach out to a member and or applicant if additional information or clarification is needed. We'll evaluate applications starting in August after the period has ended for certifications and applications, and we will complete that review by October 31st. Following, one of the things I get asked most often is like, what are you looking for? What do you want to support? And we don't have an answer, right? We don't have an answer because every application is looked at independently. There are several items that we will consider and evaluate through that application review process. A few are listed here. Obviously, the current strategy and implementing the plan, program objectives, what do you hope to accomplish? Are there other resources available to you? Ultimately, we want to make the greatest impact with the funds we provide, and that also means ensuring that the funds are able to meet the objectives and the plan can work. So following the award and the application process. So the post-application process will include award notification, disbursement and agreements, and impact reporting. So we will notify all applicants of award decision by October 31st. All award recipients will be posted on our website. The amount of award will depend upon the recipient's capacity and strength of application. The amount provided may or may not be the full amount requested, depending on availability. If you've received a previous award, you are eligible to receive funding again. However, a previous award is not a promise or guarantee that you will receive funding every year. It will be looked at independently as part of the pool of applicants each year. Once awards are announced, an agreement will be signed by the member and recipient. After a fully executed agreement is received, the disbursement request form will be provided. Funds will flow through the member's DDA, with the member providing the funds to the recipient. Evidence of those funds transferring to the recipient from the member must be provided back to Federal Home Loan Bank. The full award amount will be dispersed at once. So if you're awarded $500,000, you're going to receive $500,000 to start. The process isn't to do the work and then receive the funding. It's not disbursement like our other programs. This is awards provided upfront. The recipient will agree, of course, that the funds will be provided and that they will be used towards the needs from the application. And a big check award ceremony may be planned. We would love to celebrate with you. And then finally, impact reporting. Impact reporting will be expected 9 to 12 months out from disbursement. So for last year's awards, we're going to start that process in September, October. So that way we understand the impacts that were made with the funds that were received last year. That is completed in partnership with the recipient and the member. We want, again, this is a partnership and we want the member to be involved in that process as well. And we want to hear feedback on the program, the impacts that the funds made, improvements to the process, what went well, what should change, how can we further help. We're open to all of that feedback. Again, this is a program that's sort of in its infancy. It's just a year old. And so we're very open to how we can provide additional resources. So let's talk a little bit about last year. In 2023, we received 13 applications totaling almost $6 million, which was very exciting for us. If you would have asked me a week out, we didn't have any applications. I was getting very nervous. But in the end, we ended up getting 13 applications that totaled $6 million. Ultimately, we awarded 8 recipients totaling $3 million. Remember earlier I said, we committed to at least $1 million in funding because we just weren't sure. We weren't sure how many applications we would receive and how much funding could be utilized. And when we saw the applications and saw the needs in the community, we increased that $1 million to $3 million. 5 awards were in Oklahoma, 2 in Nebraska, and 1 in Kansas. We did not receive an application from Colorado. And they were not awarded last year. But hopefully this year, if you're on, we would love to hear from you. The funding will provide a variety of support. You can see there a few of the uses listed. Beyond traditional uses like down payment and home repair assistance, we also provided funding for the creation of a youth homeless shelter, a storm shelter and community space for elders, and even strategic planning to develop housing on tribal lands. There's no impact reporting just yet. Like I said, we'll start that in September. But I'm very excited to see how the funds were utilized and how we were able to support Native American communities in our district. So I wanted to highlight a little bit about our communication efforts because it's so important to us. Last year, we introduced the program through a webinar and podcast, and obviously included a webinar in this year's outreach efforts as well. We continue to our communication efforts about the program through marketing and other outreach. Most importantly, building relationships with our members and potential recipients. This remains the most important focus of our efforts going forward. We want to continue to listen and learn how we can shape our program and provide support. And we feel like that's critical to the long-term success and benefits of this program. I have included all of the resources on our website. These are a few quick links for you to explore. So obviously our main website and then our landing page for our Native American Housing Initiatives Grants Program. And then we obviously announced the 2023 awards last year. And so I'd encourage you to peruse those and see if there's any information that you can glean from those in your application this year. Now we're going to open it up for questions. So as I said earlier, the chat and Q&A are available if you have questions. I think do we have any?
Yes. If you were awarded in 2023, are you eligible to apply for the 2024?
You are. Yes. Yes. So if you were awarded last year, you can apply for this year. It doesn't even have to be something different. It could be the same thing. It might be that, you just need additional funding. So again, every application will be looked at every year independent and will be, obviously evaluated based on that year's applications.
How long will recipients have to spend the funds?
So the impact reporting is due the next year. If you said, hey, we used half of it, and the next half is going to be used next year, that would be acceptable. We don't have a time limit on it of when or how long it should take to use the funds. We're really using the discretion of the recipients to do that. That's it. Any other questions? Well, if you're anything like me, as soon as we stop talking or I stop talking, you're going to think of a question, and that's totally fine. My contact information is listed here, and I believe we're going to send the presentation out to the folks who signed up. So you'll have all of the links and all of the information and my contact information. And if you have any questions or need anything, certainly reach out. Oh, did another question just pop up?
Yes, it says we were recommended for applications by CHFA, but we are confused about the membership thing.
Yeah. So for those on the call, CHFA is CHAFA. It's actually a housing associate. So a housing associate is not able to access our funding in the same way that our members are. It's a little bit of a different relationship. And so we can find and partner a partner for you. And we appreciate CHAFA obviously supporting our programs and finding resources for us. Unfortunately, because of their structure, they're actually not eligible for our programs from a regulatory standpoint. And so we will find another partner for you. So if you would submit to me an email, send me an email, call me, whatever we need to do, we'll find you a member partner to make that application. Yay.
I am moving to Oklahoma in September. Can I still apply?
Yeah, so the application should actually be, this is not just for an individual, right? So it has to be from a federally recognized tribe or a tribally designated housing entity. And so these are not funds that are for individuals. We would recommend that of those recipients who have received funding, that you should certainly reach out to them to see if they have funds for you. These are awards that are for, again, eligible recipients at that higher level of a tribe or a federally recognized tribe or a tribally designated housing entity, who then would take those funds and funnel it down into their communities.
Will you send slides with your email address?
Yes, we will make sure when we send the slides out that you'll have all my contact information, of course. Anything else? This is my favorite part, is the Q&A. I can sit here and talk all day, but I really like interacting with you guys and answering your questions. So even if you don't want to ask it today, if something pops up later, reach out, and we look forward to seeing and working with you through your application process.